All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Richard. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Smart Containers. We're a 5.5-year-old company. And what are we doing in the blockchain? So we started out actually as a hardware company. We developed an insulation technology for skyscrapers. And when we pitched it for a building of Novartis, they asked us, well, could you build us a container that can transport our temperature-sensitive products? And so we saw, something is going on in this container space. And so this is what we're doing. We design and rent out containers for the temperature-sensitive products. We started out in pharma, and now we're doing food. And we saw, this business is starting to scale. We're entering into the food where we're not pooling 1,000, 10,000 containers, but we're entering into the millions. How do you administrate millions of containers? And we started doing that now on the blockchain. And we saw, we could even go one step further. So we're using the blockchain sort of for the Industry 4.0 application in logistics. Maybe as a quick, okay, so the slide doesn't fully show. Screen here. All right, so logistics is sort of the engine of global trade. Around 70 million sea freight containers actually in worldwide circulation. About $2,100 billion is spent on logistics annually. $2,100 billion, so that's a big industry. About 1 million air freight containers and 5 billion shipments a year happen. When you move a sea freight container from China to Switzerland, it takes about 200 communications. These can be emails, phone calls, whatever. So the Kühne-Nagels and DHLs of the world, they're always on the phone, always on email. And a lot can go wrong when you need to communicate 200 times. And that's sort of the natural evolution. Everything started out on paper, bill of lading, how do you load a ship. Then it transitioned onto the next new technology, fax. And then it became into email, and with email came email flood. Everyone's CCing everybody. So these systems are not fully integrated. At the same time, since 1970, the logistics costs have fallen every single year. So every single year it got cheaper to ship something around the world. So I've just bought some Chinese knives, and first of all, they arrived within 3 days at home, and I bought them on Alibaba. And the knives itself, I think they were $32, but shipping was $8. That's damn cheap to ship something around the world. Well, it was only this small, but nonetheless, I thought this was incredibly fast and cheap. So how did the logistics guys respond? They started to buy each other to achieve scale, and they tried to put in centralized ERP systems. What does this mean? At DHL, there are 26 ERP systems managing around the world. Kühne-Nagel is the only one, to my knowledge, that actually has only one instance of their system, Oracle, running. All the other guys have 26 different older, newer systems. So it's a mess. DHL, as an example, tried to integrate this into one. It cost them 1.2 billion euros, and they just wrote it off, that this project didn't work. So this can be extremely risky if you want to bring this onto a new platform. So unfortunately, this is normally animated. Normally, it's an outsider that disrupts an industry. Tesla is famous because they did not only revolutionize the electric car, but if you look into the software side of the car, this is a totally different ballgame. All of a sudden, the Mercedes and BMWs, they saw, wait a minute, these guys are way ahead of us. We need to really invest in software. Apple was the first one that really saw you need to be a master of hardware and software if you really want to drive the user experience. And as an example, was able to change the way we consume music and video today. And Amazon, also famous example, started out shipping books, and today they're shipping everything because their core competency is actually shipping stuff. They know more about warehousing than DHL. So DHL is learning from Amazon how to do warehousing, I'm not kidding. And what do we do up here? We also combine hardware and software in a new way, and we use a new type of software, and that's a blockchain to pool our assets. So that's me and my co-founder. It's our vision to actually reduce the admin that's required to move assets around the world in logistics, and that's through smart contracts. And that's an amazing invention. I could even imagine that smart contracts and the next developments in that could eventually go into a Nobel Prize. This is going to be one of the biggest breakthroughs of this century. And Nico is a little bit crazy. He said, well, if we really bring this to a level that a container can autonomously live, sort of he can invoice himself, he knows where to be moved around, and people actually do it, then it becomes autonomous. And within warehouses, this is already possible. Now, if we can make this happen between warehouses, then this is actually not that far away. So where do we stand today? So we were about 5.5 years. We have invested about 50 man-years of R&D with close to 100 patents. In our sector, which is temperature control, we're about 75 times more reliable. This is a huge difference. So how does this calculate? Out of 100 shipments, about 8.6 shipments go wrong. And last year we were at 0.1. And we ship to everywhere, from Switzerland to Brazil in the jungle, or from Germany to South Korea. We have everything a little bit in the portfolio. And why does it work? Because we stuff the containers full with Internet of Things sensors. So we actually know where the container is, how is he doing, who's manipulating the container, where a container shouldn't be, so we have that information. And to our surprise, we were the first ones that were actually doing this. So we have today the largest fleet, for example, of Internet of Things containers in air freight. And we got a lot of data out of this. This is also now become an interesting field. So we have two applications. One is the pharma application, it's called SkyCell. SkyCell is quite now successful. We are now the 4th largest provider in the pharma sector. This is running quite well. So these containers about the size of half of this table, a picture afterwards. And now we're launching also into food. And there we're not starting with the big containers, but we're actually starting with an overnight delivery solution for grocery shopping. So when you, who has ever ordered on the shop something to your home? How did the box look like? Or how did the...
Incredibly big and almost empty.
And super ugly. And I wonder who cleans this. And for example, Coop chose a very different road. Coop actually invested in trucks. So they poured a lot of money, I believe almost 60 million Swiss francs, into new trucks. And Migros didn't invest in anything. They just used some stuff off the shelves and threw in some ice and hope it works. So there is a massive, and that, imagine, and this is Switzerland. So probably in Vietnam, probably not even at that level. So a huge potential. So quick overview again about SkyCell. These are the airline containers that we rent out to the pharma industry, the 4th largest player. On average, we reduce about 20% total cost because customers don't lose their products. So if 8.6% of all shipments go wrong, and all of a sudden you don't lose that, then that's a huge saving for our clients. Huge recognition now. We're now the safest provider on that market segment that's winning us the customers, and we have a pretty good board of industry experts. Now, the food side, this is brand new. We just announced last week that we are working together with the largest maker of boxes of any kinds in the food space. They're called Schoeller-Allibert. They don't know how to cool. We know how to cool. They know how to make 2.5 billion boxes. We don't. So that's why you partner up. And so we're bringing out to the market now a solution that this size, and that will be used to ship groceries to your homes, and it costs less than $1 a day. And how is that possible? Because the admin effort is close to zero, thanks to smart systems like the blockchain. So this is really driven by cost. If you bring down the cost in logistics, you win. So that's what we're focusing on here today. Now, the next part, so there's more, where do we want to go tomorrow is actually how do we manage information in logistics. And today, one person is sort of in charge of a shipment. So that one person chases after the shipment, phone calls, emails, making sure that they know where it is. And if there's something wrong with it, to fix it. That's a lot of emails. A lot of mistakes happen. If we turn this around, that we actually attach the information to a parcel or to the shipment, then everyone can just retrieve the information very efficiently. Now, if you go to one ERP system, everyone have to connect to us, and nobody would like to do that. But if you can do that through a decentralized system, then everyone's okay with that. Everyone's okay to connect to the internet, but I think everyone would be not okay if everyone had to connect in the world to Swisscom. So I think this is the beautiful part here about this third-party system called blockchain. Now, we need two parts, because there are certain elements that are open. Everyone should be able to see that. What's the weight of a product? Is it dangerous to move it? How do I move it around the world? And then there's certain information that's sensitive. Sort of, what's the value? How do I customs clear it? There is certain sensitive information in there. So we need two parts. One is a permissive blockchain, and one is a non-permissive blockchain. And right now, this is running in a beta version on Ethereum, but we're experimenting with other more modern systems. So we're looking into NEM as an example, EOS, and a couple of the next generation of blockchain modules. But we had to start with something that actually works, and so that's why it's on Ethereum right now. Now, what we're building is sort of an open source ecosystem for logistics, where the majority of the functions are for free. So that's always quite important in adoption of a new system. So the majority of the functions for free. But certain add-on services, for example, if you want to pay through the system because you don't know the person, you don't trust that person, then you have to pay for it. And the ultimate goal is that there is no admin involved, shipping, exchanging documents. So that's all done through the system. So in essence, what we're doing is we're just providing new protocols so that the existing infrastructure can use it. So the effect that we want to achieve is actually a decentralization of logistics, because logistics, funnily enough, it's a decentralized problem, shipping something from China to Switzerland, but it's handled in a very central way. And so that's why I believe there is a big application there. It's reducing the amount of shipments also, because right now you don't ship it directly to Switzerland, you actually ship it to a hub, mostly in Germany, and from Germany it goes onto a truck and then da-da-da-da. If there's a smart way, that can be done decentrally. So that lowers costs and frees up the manpower. That can be done in other things. So we're actually doing an ICO. It's running quite well. In the pre-sale, we raised within 10 minutes 12.5 million. That was quite quick. Also, the private sale contributed in large parts to that, and now in the crowd sale. So we're raising in total 40 million, 36 goes into the Smark coin. So Smark is the container pool of food and pharma. And the Logi coin is this ecosystem that powers the logistics side. So these are two separate coins. Maybe a little bit about history of doing a fully compliant ICO in Switzerland. So we approached FINMA and said, is that okay the way we do it? And surprisingly, they ruled, although Smark is a profit share token, it's not a security. So that had a lot of implications. The way we can list it on exchanges. But the other one was also, for example, the dividends that we distribute globally, we don't have withholding tax. That was an interesting ruling. We were the first ever ruling in Switzerland to got a ruling from the federal tax authorities on that. The second one was also, we don't have any Stempelgebühr. So when we hand out, there is no emissions tax on all the tokens that we hand out. So we're not treated like a share. So that was also quite an interesting achievement by our lawyers. So they're now dancing and giving this as an example. Yeah, so these were interesting times. Now, so that's sort of the management team. We have about 45 people directly employed in the company. We have about 40 people that do manufacturing and various other parts for us. And so this is the core management team that looks after the projects globally. Now, doing an ICO is not something you do every day. So you need people that know how to do it. And we got some known advisors. Oliver Bussmann of the Crypto Valley Association. He helped us shape sort of our general token proposal. Lücke is our technology partner. Today, Lücke is not called Lücke anymore. In this field, it's called Blockchain Valley Ventures. And then also Gabriela Hauser, our wonderful lawyer that got us through this process. She actually did the Ethereum ICO when she was at MME. And Mark Bettinger is in charge of listing us on exchanges, and then you need to do some PR. So David Waxman is helping us do that. So sort of the last question, why invest? I think we're in a little bit of an unusual ICO because we're up and running company. So there is more than a white paper. We're actually ahead of our set timeline in the white paper. Quite proud of that. And so yeah, previously we were a tech company. We could only take high net worth individual investments. Before, an investor had to do a minimum ticket of $1 million. Today, through an ICO, we can actually administrate people only investing 500 Swiss francs now, or $500. It's quite a beautiful way to democratize investments. Now, my big inspiration is Steve Jobs, and he always had one more thing at the end of a presentation. And for about 3 years, we were developing something which is very important to us, where we believe the biggest potential is in direct-to-patient logistics. So today, pharmaceuticals are shipped in our big containers around the world, and then they're at a distributor. The distributor breaks down the million vials of vaccines, and these vaccines are then brought to another distributor, and the distributor brings it to a pharmacy, and then you pick it up in the pharmacy and get an injection. Now with this system, you can actually ship it to your home. And I believe that this is a huge potential, the way we will have access to medication. Some treatments, as an example, are for life. So you can't really travel around the world when you don't have access to this medication. One small example, for example, is in vitro fertilization. So if you want to get pregnant when you're a little bit older, you need these hormone treatments. They're extremely temperature sensitive. Every syringe is $800. You can't move around the world unless you bring them with you, and there is no box you can use today. So that's what we did here. It's actually now in operation for almost 9 months with our lead customer, Takeda. And now imagine 1 million boxes swirling around the world. How do you administrate that? So right now we have about 1,000 circulation, so that's manageable with our systems today. But going forward, when this explodes, we want to be able to scale, and that's why we use the blockchain. So it would be a big pleasure if you join us in that small revolution.
Richard, thank you very much.